Hello students, today we are going to discuss the trigeminal nerve. This is the fifth cranial nerve and it is the largest cranial nerve. Now this nerve is bearing the sensory ganglion, which is known as the sensory ganglion or semilunar ganglion. And this sensory ganglion is present in relation to the petrous part of the temporal bone, where that is at the anterior part of the apex of petrous part, which is lying in the middle cranial fossa. Now, if we see the trigeminal nerve, what are the different parts of this trigeminal nerve? That we will discuss in my coming lectures. In this lecture only, I will discuss the intro part of the trigeminal nerve. So, introduction portion of the trigeminal. So, this trigeminal nerve has three branches, that is ophthalmic, maxillary and mandibular. Out of this, the ophthalmic and maxillary, these are purely sensory nerves, whereas the mandibular is just carrying both the types of fibers, that is sensory as well as the motor fibers. Now, if we see, the important thing which is related with this trigeminal nerve is that the branches of the trigeminal nerve, they are related with the certain peripheral parasympathetic ganglion. So what are those? So you know there are four peripheral parasympathetic ganglion. So one is the ciliary ganglion. Then is pterygopalatine ganglion. Then is otic ganglion. Then is submandibular ganglion. So as I have told you that these ganglia, they are related with the branches of the trigeminal nerve. So this ciliary ganglion is related with the nasociliary branch of the ophthalmic division of trigeminal. Clear? Now this pterygopalatine ganglion is related with the maxillary division of trigeminal. Then this otic ganglion is again, it is related with the mandibular division of the trigeminal. This submandibular ganglion is related with the lingual branch of mandibular nerve. So these are the four peripheral parasympathetic ganglia which are related with this, the branches, the different branches of the trigeminal nerve. Now coming to the different nuclei, as I have told you that this trigeminal nerve is a mixed nerve, but why it is categorized under mixed nerve? As we know that only the motor fibers, they are just present along with the mandibular division of trigeminal. Otherwise, the ophthalmic and maxillary, these are purely sensory divisions. But because of the motor component which is related with the mandibular nerve, so it is categorized under the mixed nerve. Now coming to the nuclei of this nerve. So definitely it has a sensory part, that is all the three divisions, that is ophthalmic, maxillary and mandibular, they have the sensory portion. So the different sensory nuclei are mesencephalic nucleus, then main motor nucleus, main sensory nucleus, then spinal nucleus of trigeminal. So mesencephalic nucleus, as the name is indicating, it is just present in the midbrain. So what kind of neuron they are present here? That is pseudo-unipolar neurons they are present. And what kind of sensation it is receiving? It is just receiving the proprioceptive sensations from the muscles of mastication, TM joint and teeth. So this nucleus is meant for this, which is lying in the midbrain. Because of its location in the midbrain, this is given the name mesencephalic nucleus. Clear? Now coming to the next, this mesencephalic nucleus is continuing with the main sensory nucleus which is lying in the pons. But this nucleus is lying lateral to the motor nucleus, which is again lying in the pons. So this is the motor nucleus. So this is the sensory nucleus, main sensory nucleus. This is the mesencephalic nucleus. And this main sensory nucleus is lying along with the motor nucleus of the trigeminal, and the location it is lying lateral to the motor nucleus. Now this nucleus is receiving the fibers. What kind of fibers? That is discriminative touch from the face. So this is main sensory nucleus, which is continuing with the spinal nucleus of the trigeminal. Now this spinal nucleus of the trigeminal is located, or it is just continuing with the main sensory nucleus in the pons and coming downward, and it is reaching up to the lower level of the medulla. Medulla oblongata. Okay. Now these fibers, it is just receiving the pain, temperature, sensations, light touch sensations from the face. So this is the spinal nucleus of trigeminal, which is receiving these different sensations. Now if we trace this nucleus downward, it is reaching up to the C2 segment of the spinal cord, and it is containing which portion of the gray matter of this cervical spinal segment? That is substantia gelatinosa. So in nutshell, if we see, this is the nucleus which is just extending from the midbrain up to the second cervical spinal segment. In the portion of the nucleus which is lying in the midbrain, that is given the name mesencephalic nucleus. The rounded part of this which is lying in the pons, that is given the name main sensory nucleus. And the extension of that main sensory nucleus into the medulla oblongata is given the name spinal nucleus of trigeminal, which is continuing with the substantia gelatinosa portion of the gray matter of the cervical spinal segment, up to which level? That is the C2 level. So these are the basically main sensory nucleus, and the motor fibers which are just joining when they leave the brain, they join the mandibular division of the trigeminal. For those fibers, the nucleus is lying in the pons, but it is lying medial to the main sensory nucleus. M for medial, M for motor. Means motor nucleus is medial to the sensory nucleus of the trigeminal nerve. Sorry. Now coming to the functional component of this. So as I have told you that ophthalmic division and maxillary division, these are the purely sensory divisions. So the functional component for ophthalmic and maxillary division is general somatic afferent. Now this general somatic afferent for ophthalmic is carrying the sensations from the upper part of the face and lateral part of this scalp portion. And for the maxillary division, and that maxillary division is carrying the sensations from the middle portion of the face. Now for this general somatic afferent component is for ophthalmic and maxillary division. Now for mandibular division, there are two functional components. One is general somatic afferent again, which is carrying the general sensation from the lower part of the face. Then it has special visceral afferent. So this mandibular nerve is the nerve of first pharyngeal arch. So all the muscles which are arising from the mesoderm portion of that first pharyngeal arch, they are just supplied by the mandibular nerve. So what are those muscles? That is muscles of mastication, then anterior belly of digastric, tensor tympani and tensor veli palatini. So these are the basically two tensors, anterior belly of digastric and the muscles of mastication, that is masseter, medial pterygoid, lateral pterygoid, temporalis. They are supplied by the mandibular division and they are categorized under special visceral afferent. Now coming to the next portion which is related with this nerve is that once, as I have told you about the nuclei, about the functional component, so how this nerve leaves the brain. So this nerve is leaving the brain from the ventrolateral aspect of the pons. What is the point? Where the pons is just related with the middle cerebellar peduncle. So it is just emerging from the brain from that point, and after that, this nerve is related with the sensory ganglion, which is crescent shape. So this is the sensory root with which it is attached to the brain, means it is leaving the brain from this portion, and the motor division of this is coming along with it. So this sensory root is coming, the fibers are coming from which portion of the brain? That is from the mesencephalic nucleus, from the main sensory nucleus and spinal nucleus of the trigeminal nerve. And this motor root is coming from which portion? That is from the motor nucleus, which is lying in the pons. So this is the sensory root. Now this sensory root, it bears the ganglion which is known as the trigeminal ganglion. Ganglion or semilunar ganglion because of its shape, or another name is Gasserian ganglion. So it is semilunar, half moon shaped. It has a convex surface, it has the concave surface. This concave surface is related with the sensory root, and from its convex surface the three roots they emerge: ophthalmic, maxillary and mandibular. And along with this mandibular nerve, the motor root is also coming along with it. So it is the you can say half moon shaped structure ganglion, which has the basically pseudo unipolar neurons are present in this portion. So nothing is related in this ganglion. This is structural ganglion. From the one end, it is attached to the brain through the sensory root. From the another end, it is just giving the branches, that is ophthalmic division. So this is ophthalmic division, this is maxillary division, and this is mandibular division. So up to this we will discuss in this lecture. So once it is just leaving the brain, how it leave the cranium. Now it is open in the middle cranial cavity. So this ganglion is related with the petrous part of the temporal bone. Now petrous part of the temporal bone, if we see the bony portion of this, so that is lying over here. So this ganglion is covered by the dural matter fold, which is known as the Meckel's cave. So that is covered by this. Basically, that is the folding of the meningeal layer of the dura mater. So that fold of dural matter sheath, you can say, or covering out of that. So that just encloses the trigeminal ganglion, and that is given the name Meckel's cave. So from another end, as the nerve is leaving, now that we will discuss in my next lecture. First I will discuss the ophthalmic, then maxillary, and then mandibular. Now, if we see the ophthalmic, definitely it will leave the cranium through the superior orbital fissure. It will enter into the orbit. Maxillary will leave the cranium through foramen rotundum. Mandibular nerve will leave the cranium through foramen ovale. So up to this, it should be clear to you that this is the introduction portion of the trigeminal nerve. So that's all for this lecture. I will discuss these nerves in my next lecture. Thank you very much.